wants the bag. All I wanted was a bag. All I wanted was a bag. All I wanted was a bag. All I wanted was a
short video right here. We're gonna look back at the prosecution of the brother of Master P, C Murder. Was it unjust? Some would suggest that he was even set up. When you look at the details of the case, I'll let you be the judge. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Roll the tape.
Meanwhile, in Louisiana, just 200 yards from the Mississippi River, in the jail cell that has been his home for nearly 3 years, Corey Miller sits waiting on a retrial for the murder of a 16-year-old boy in a nightclub shooting.
This is Jefferson Parish Correctional Center. You know, they got me for a second-degree murder, something I didn't do.
To many, Corey is not behind bars because he's a killer, but because he is the well-known rapper C Murder, infamous for his stark rhymes of violence and killing.
But you better put it touch your law and your paw. My temper hot like Tom on the block, posed up with them things loaded up. And if them people pull up and tell my boy to free, buckle up, knuckle up, screaming CP3.
This man was demonized from literally the day he was arrested. The chief law enforcement officer of Jefferson Parish makes a statement to the police that this is a man who's living his name, C Murder. He's living his lyrics.
But prosecutors say the stage name fits like a bloody glove. He's a killer. The verdict in the new trial will hinge on the jury's perception of who sits before them: Corey Miller, artist, or C Murder, homicidal thug.
To have my name used against me since I've been arrested, you know, it hurt, you heard me? It's because it's like, I'm guilty for I'm innocent.
New Orleans and Miami are just two battlegrounds in what has become a war of values.
Race does play a factor in a lot of these cases. You have prejudice in every department because people see these guys making a lot of money, driving a Mercedes-Benz that they could work 20 years and never get.
To some, the conflict is as much a class struggle as a racial one.
Hip-hop spits truth to power, and very often those in law enforcement represent a protective force for those who are in power.
Police would be focusing on hip-hop like never before. One of the first to react in 2001, 7 years after Tupac Shakur's conviction on sexual assault charges, another thug rapper found himself in trouble with the law. After nearly 3 years in Jefferson Parish Correctional Center, Corey Miller remains behind bars on charges of second-degree murder and the killing of a 16-year-old boy.
This is happening to me because first of all, I'm C Murder.
And in New Orleans, that means many things to different people. The brother of rap superstar and mogul Master P, Miller carved his own niche in hip-hop. Corey Miller forged his gangster image in the grim Calliope housing projects in Central City, New Orleans.
Basically, just coming from the project, the police gonna profile you as a criminal, as a crook, as somebody that's about to do wrong.
On the night of January 12th, 2002, Miller went to a rap contest at the Platinum Club in this empty bowling alley across the river from New Orleans.
The night of this incident at the Platinum Club, I went to have some fun. I went to the club. There was an incident. There was a shooting.
Steve Thomas, a 16-year-old who had sneaked into the club, was struck and killed.
I had no part of it. Once the shooting happened, I left along with 100 other people, you know, and left, went about my business.
6 days later, Miller was arrested for the murder, although police possessed no physical evidence connecting him to the crime.
The evidence that they had to lock me up was none. There's no evidence, no forensics, no ballistics, no gun, no nothing.
No calls to the police reporting the murder were made at the time, and different witnesses recall vastly different characteristics when describing the shooter. Nor the suspects were pursued by police. Jefferson Parish police refused comment on the case.
A name was given to the police as the person who had committed this murder. And I can tell you that from my review of what was purported to be the entire police files, there's not any indication that any steps whatsoever were taken to follow that lead as to the identity, as to whether or not this person was the real perpetrator.
On the indictment, Miller was also charged by his stage name, C. Murder.
By the time I went to trial, they came up with 3 witnesses.
There was not a single witness who came to this trial and testified before this jury that said they ever even saw a gun in his hand.
To Miller and his attorney, what the state had really put on trial was the stage image of C. Murder.
For me to be in a situation, because my name is C. Murder and I'm on a murder charge, you can't put both of them together and just off top assume that I'm guilty.
The prosecutor pointed to C. Murder and said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is his name, C. Murder. Now, if a person got a name, C. Murder, you know that they must be guilty of murder. That's wrong.
At one point during a bond hearing, C. Murder's blunt lyrics were read in the courtroom.
What does his lyrics have to do with whether or not he should be given bond? So does his profession, does his line of work, does hip-hop play some role in these things? Apparently it did to these folks.
It was not the first time that a rapper's lyrics were used as evidence against him.
Not only is it outrageous and prejudicial to have somebody in a trial to have lyrics read from a song and use that in some ways as evidence of your guilt, but it also turns on its head the whole idea of the presumption of innocence in our criminal system.
I think that's ridiculous. I think that's like me, you know, that's like Robert De Niro getting a ticket and me, you know, reading a line from Goodfellas. It makes no sense.
But people, you know, they ask questions like, well, do you feel like rappers have a responsibility, you know, with their lyrics? No. Their only responsibility is to make it as hot as you think it could be.
But to police, the literal nature of rap tracks makes them potential evidence of a criminal state of mind.
If you are saying in your rap lyric that you are going to kill or are responsible for some form of violence that took place, and that violence did in fact unfold in the manner in which you're talking about, then I think the police have the very right to use those lyrics.
The combined effect of the C. Murder image and the testimony of the 3 witnesses against him was enough to sway the jury. Miller was convicted of second-degree murder.
In C. Murder's case, you see an example of grossly unfair use of the First Amendment as evidence to convict someone.
My conviction was really, you know, they took my soul, they took my life to put the community at ease.
The mandatory sentence for the conviction was life in prison. While the verdict was the subject of angry debate in New Orleans, throughout hip-hop, a larger question was being asked. Was rap itself being targeted for a takedown? A smoking gun would soon appear. Then, troubling discoveries about the handling of the C. Murder trial added credence to the idea that rappers were being targeted for prosecution. Hidden from the defense team was the fact that each of the 3 key witnesses against Miller had themselves been facing charges. Offers had been made reducing or dismissing their charges in return for their testimony. Miller's defense team immediately appealed for the verdict to be set aside. Equally disturbing, a major piece of conflicting testimony had been reported to prosecutors but never made it to trial.
And one of the witnesses came forward and said, well, it wasn't him. I saw a guy who it was. It wasn't Corey Miller.
When she was questioned by the police, she told them that although she had never seen Corey Miller with a gun, she had seen someone else. And in fact, she said that she was shown photographs by the police and that she identified a person in those photographs as the person she had seen with a gun. She said the police told her they weren't interested in that person. They were only interested in Corey Miller.
Based on the new information, the trial judge overturned the verdict and granted a new trial.
Ultimately, the jury's verdict was set aside by the court because the court found that the police and the prosecutors had massively violated Corey Miller's right to a fair trial.
Corey waits on his next day in court. Prosecutors say the outcome will remain the same. But he wonders if it will be his turn in court, or if once again it will be C Murder and all of hip-hop on trial.
They're trying to stop us all together. I mean, is it a bigger picture? Is it this is the first step to something you're trying to do to us in the future? Maybe end it? You know, you got to start thinking like that, because, look, it's real out here. You know, it's real.
It's really in the condition of the people.